Hello, and welcome to today's web seminar, Mobile Test Automation, a Collaborative Strategy, featuring Aaron Rudger, Director of Product Marketing at Keynote, and Dean Chua, Senior Product Manager at Keynote. I'm your host and moderator, Josiah Renaud. Thank you for joining us today. Before I hand it off to the speakers, let me explain the controls in this console. If you experience any technical issues, please send a note through the question field located beneath the panels, and we'll be on hand to help as quickly as possible. Our responses can be read in the Q&A panel to the left of the slides. This is also the same way to submit questions. We welcome all comments and inquiries during today's event, so feel free to ask as many as you'd like, and we'll answer as many as possible during the Q&A session after the presentation. This presentation contains a live demo. To optimize your bandwidth for the best viewing experience possible, please close any unnecessary applications that may be running in the background. At the bottom of your console is a widget toolbar. These widgets open panels. The console opens with three on your screen: the speaker, Q&A, and the slide panels. All of these panels can be moved around and resized to your liking. If you accidentally close one, click the respective widget to reopen the panel in its original place. Hover your cursor over these icons to reveal labels identifying each widget. Through these icons, you can download the speaker slides and share this event with friends and colleagues. This event is being recorded and will be made available for on-demand viewing. Once the recording is ready, you'll receive an email with instructions on how to access the presentation and slides on demand. With that said, I'd like to introduce and pass the controls to our first speaker, Aaron.
Thank you, Josiah. Welcome, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Wherever you are today, we're really glad that you're here to join us. I'm joined myself by Dean Chua, who is part of our product organization. My name, again, is Aaron Rudger, and I'm the Director of Product Marketing here at Keynote. And we're very excited that you've taken a bit of time from your day to join us as we talk about collaboration, specifically as a strategy for mobile test automation. And it's going to be a great talk. We're going to talk a little bit about some best practices, give you some thoughts as to kind of Keynote's philosophy around mobile test automation. But then we also want to help you to understand a few different perspectives as it relates to technology and approaches, and hopefully it will be practical and tangible for you. And we hope that you'll get some good use out of the content and the next 40 to 50 minutes or so that you've granted us time to share with you today. So I'll start off by just kind of sharing with you some thoughts about a high level, right, from the highest level possible, what we are all faced with today as our companies, the companies for whom we work, are going to market to provide interesting, engaging, and really dynamic customer experiences for what is really emerging as a truly mobile native customer base. We hear a lot about customer experience these days, and really customer experience in this new digital age is really the battleground that businesses are fighting for, the minds and hearts of the customers that we're trying to reach out to and engage with today. And so improving that customer experience, providing new stimulating interactive experiences specifically through the mobile channel is really what, as a business, we're finding as we talk to our customers, people are prioritizing their resources, their code, their energy, their budgets all toward. And you know, in terms of the strategies for delivering digitally, we recently partnered with a company called Forrester Research to do a study to ask folks, oh shoot, and it's not showing up very well here on the slide, unfortunately, but to ask folks what their top digital strategies are for success over the course of the next 18 months or so. And unfortunately, you can't see all of the various responses here, so I'm going to read out just a few of them. Really, they focused around improving that customer experience, expanding their digital assets, specifically in terms of mobile, and investing in more people, more skills, versus maybe reducing costs and basically taking approaches that are more kind of cost-oriented in nature. And probably no surprisingly, at least this part of the slide showed up here pretty well for you, not surprisingly, what ended up being reported back by companies, and we surveyed over 200 or so different folks representing both IT leaders as well as business leaders, folks from the line of business that are actually in charge of and have responsibility for the digital assets that our companies are providing out to our customers. That when we asked them the question around their priorities, not surprisingly, they came back with their top 3 responses being really all focused around growth. And specifically customer experience, mobile assets, right, and the extension of digital services. And what's interesting about this is that, in another, I would say, non-scientific poll, we asked developers and quality teams how these innovation priorities are actually being communicated down to them from the business, right? And, what we heard was basically the #1 response was something like this. It's basically, we just need to get stuff shipped faster, and that innovation needs to come at a higher pace and a higher velocity. And actually, this is technically inaccurate. It's not ludicrous speed. It should really be plaid, I believe. But anyways, we're digressing just a little bit here. To get back on point, the reality is that how this articulates in terms of what the industry is seeing is that the compression of release cycles and release velocity is coming fast and furious, and that if you are in the Android mobile app development world, your release frequency is about every 28 days on average, and then if you're in the iOS world, it's about every 59 days. It's basically monthly, right? We're looking at monthly release cycles, and yet the customer expectations for their applications, again, slide not showing up correctly. But the statistics are that if you're not publishing a high quality application that's going to be functionally stable and that it's going to be high performing, customers are simply not going to adopt it and they're not going to engage with it, right? And so the bar continues to be raised ever higher for functionality and performance. It's that overarching customer experience we're trying to create that, fundamentally, if the features are great, the design is intuitive, but it's brittle from the standpoint of quality, then you're going to be under-delivering to those customer expectations and not being able to provide a satisfactory engagement environment for them. So, getting there with high quality, right, takes code and it takes collaboration. And so that's really the crux of what we wanted to talk about here, was this nexus between the points in which the creation of the code and the testing of that code so that it can be properly built and delivered and published ultimately up to the App Store can be ultimately expressed in a very efficient manner and a very fast, responsive manner. And so for quality teams that want to accelerate app delivery, it's important to acknowledge a few key development realities, right? And these are just 3 of these realities. The first one, of course, being specialization, that coders are experts in the languages that they develop against, whether it's Objective-C or Java or C# or Ruby, whatever, right? They want to work within that environment because that's what they're inherently geared to be able to do. That's their passion. That's what they do best. But coders also prefer open source tools and frameworks. It gives them control and it gives them flexibility. And because they're innately able to extend and customize the kind of goals and objectives that they want to achieve, being comfortable with the model of community support and enhancement, there's a natural gravitation to open source. And lastly, testing. And so it would be inaccurate for us to suggest that testing only happens in the realm of quality assurance, and that's simply not true. Testing happens in development as well, and it's actually growing in terms of the amount and volume of testing that occurs in the development cycle. And so developers themselves, they're increasingly taking responsibility, especially in mobile application development, for doing testing themselves. And there's a number of great reasons, right? Again, they know how to automate stuff. They write automation all day, so a test is an easy extension of what's already very natural. But also, the reduction in the cost of defects that can be identified early in the process is amazing. And we have had stats, and you probably are very familiar with them, those stats that basically say the cost of a bug, the further out you get toward production, and ultimately when it's in production, can be orders of magnitude greater than if they're identified early in the application lifecycle, right? And also, it's because oftentimes there's a very focused expertise that a developer might have, specifically in mobile, that maybe other folks in the quality assurance team might not, in terms of their level of specialization or expertise. So these are important realities to just kind of acknowledge. And then to also understand that when the testing in development occurs, it tends to focus around certain characteristics, or there's certain qualities associated with that testing. Oftentimes it's very focused on units, right? Small units that are going to be oriented around basically handling some of the non-core functionality that they're working on from a feature extension or enhancement standpoint, right? And so once they are able to enhance or extend their application, to then run very simple units to simply validate that those features are working in the context of the application, and maybe a few very simple units that are core to helping them get to that point in their feature development that they need to be able to get to. And so that also is going to happen within the context of their development environment, their IDE, right? And so the language that they're going to write those units in, the way that they're going to automate those, is going to be probably related back to that IDE. And they're going to be using a mix of emulators and maybe some personal devices, maybe some phones that they have on their desk or in drawers, phones that they, or smart or tablets that they've accumulated over time and have very easy access to, but will be basically, fairly, let's just say, intimate to that individual developer. And they may share those by sneaker netting them around the office. But that's kind of the reality of the way that they're going to develop. And sometimes when you do that, you end up with creating units that look like this. And here we've fit everything into our template, but it's not exactly what we were looking for at the end. So let's talk about QA, because really when things come together, that's at the quality assurance stage. And the QA teams have access to resources and a different set of, they're really oriented around a different set of objectives than the developer. And so their testing needs and their requirements and their priorities are going to be focused differently. And you guys being QA professionals in the industry, I don't need to go through this list because you live it and breathe it every day. But I think one of the key takeaways here is that you're focused on having a bias for the totality, the end-to-end aspect of the quality of an application is a really important distinction that differs from maybe the developer's mindset as they go about doing testing, right? And again, we're talking today about collaboration, and these differences and this approach, sometimes results in silos. Testing ends up being siloed. And if we want to eliminate rework, we want to reduce friction, we want to improve efficiency, we need to think about ways of reducing these silos and helping our testing become more collaborative, right? It's just simply not necessary today to partition off tests into these individual repositories that can't be leveraged by other teams, especially if you're in larger organizations. That becomes a very difficult problem to overcome, but it's not something that can't be overcome. And so let's kind of talk about some of the approaches maybe. And one particular approach that we wanted to explore with you in terms of bridging that we've found as being something that our customers have been kind of talking to us about is Appium. And Appium is a mobile test automation framework that's open source and really helps to kind of close some of these gaps or bridge some of the divides in helping development and QA teams get on the same page a little bit more with regard to testing, because it has some natural benefits associated with it in regards to allowing folks to create automation in the scripting language or in the programming language that's native to them. It allows folks to have access to automation frameworks that can be ported to emulators as well as real devices. And it just kind of helps people to kind of get on the same page, right? And you may have your own approach, and Appium is not necessarily the right approach for everybody. It's one approach that we wanted to kind of talk about today and focus on, but you might be a shop that is dedicated entirely to Microsoft or HP, and you might be using application lifecycle management tools or frameworks in those environments that are closed by nature because they're vendor proprietary, but they help to kind of accomplish some of the same things. And what I just want to leave you with is that regardless, although we're going to talk about Appium here, regardless of whether or not you choose to go that route, the practices and the processes that we're going to explore kind of apply to those types of environments as well. So, you know, we thought this might be a good opportunity to just pause for a second and ask you to just give us your sense of whether or not Appium has ever come up on your radar. And if you could, to just take a moment to answer this polling question. Does your company use Appium today? And the list of responses are yes, we use it, or no, but we're thinking about, or we actually are planning to use it in the next 6 months or so, or absolutely not. We're just a different kind of environment. Open source doesn't really work for us. We haven't really thought about Appium at all. And so no, we don't have any plans to use it right now. So if you could take a moment to respond to that question, really appreciate it. I think we'd like to share those responses with you as an audience as well. Dean, if I could just kind of bring you into the conversation at this point, you know, as we talk to customers, and Keynote is in the business of providing quality products, specifically mobile testing solutions, so that quality assurance teams worldwide can improve the quality of their applications. So we talk with customers all the time. And in your conversations, you know, what have you been hearing from the folks that you've been talking to about Appium?
Yes, we certainly have customers who are actually using Appium now. And since we released the Appium support, they've been talking to us in terms of extending their test cases into the mobile devices in our Keynote labs.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay, great. Super. Well, I think that we're just going to go ahead and wrap up the poll here. It looks like we've got a really good, healthy base of answers. So I'm going to go ahead and close the poll. Any last-minute suggestions you want to put in there, go ahead and put them in. Let's go ahead and see what the results are. Okay. So the results are that 15% of you guys are using Appium today to automate your mobile testing. That's great. And then 24% of the audience is considering using Appium within the next 6 months or so. That's pretty interesting. And then about 60% of the audience is currently not using and doesn't really have any plans for using Appium. And that's totally fine. As I mentioned, it may be because from an environmental standpoint, it just simply is not a good fit or match for your company, for your application development process. This is great feedback. So, you know, in terms of creating an environment where you can foster collaboration, specifically in terms of the benefits that QA can receive when you're able to better collaborate with development in terms of leveraging and extending the kinds of testing that's happening in development, there's some interesting opportunities for some advantages that present themselves if you can exploit that. So one of them is that you can actually, you know, leverage assets without sacrificing capability. You can take those tests and you can extend them into an environment, especially one where you can validate your quality and your testing with real device feedback which is a very important aspect. Secondly, you can take these very narrow units and enhance them to provide additional coverage. And so again, from a QA perspective, you're really focused on making sure that there's a healthy, very appropriate amount of coverage in terms of the kind of testing that you're doing. And so, for example, to take and extend that coverage by, instead of using one set of data to simply pass a unit, to expand the range or the array of data that's being put into that particular unit to make it broader in terms of the kind of coverage that it's going to provide to you. And then, of course, taking multiple units and combining them into full cases. And if you're doing end-to-end testing, you really want to ensure that the full quality, that the full customer experience is reliable and it's stable and it's functional for our customers, then being able to stitch together or compose or orchestrate multiple units into a full end-to-end test case, how awesome is that? And if you're in the development side of the spectrum, when QA is able to leverage your unit tests, you get to receive certain benefits as well. And so, this notion of the source of truth, the single source of truth, my test passed, your test failed, you must have written your test incorrectly. Well, that goes away if you're actually sharing the same test, right? Additionally, you can improve the veracity of the fixes that are applied once you have identified some kind of defect. So if in the development side of the house, you're able to provide back to them a test case or a specific unit that is actually consistent and written in the same construct that the developer has written, had been writing it in, then that just improves the ability of the developer to ensure that the fix that they put in is actually going to be the right fix, because they can tag the test that you created or that you extended in quality assurance and then apply that if they're able to run it in their environment and to ensure that the fix that they put in is actually correct and that it's going to deliver the desired outcome. And then, of course, there's improving the validity and the accuracy of all your testing by the inclusion of real devices into the mix, right? And actually to be biased toward doing a lot of testing, if not all of it, against real devices. So these are some interesting benefits that folks can realize. But when you're building a bridge, you don't want to build that bridge to nowhere. And so one of the things that's really important, we think, in creating a collaboration strategy is to ensure that it is truly collaborative, that you're not just talking about test assets and being able to reuse those, but to be able to do that in a way where the environment within which they are shared can truly foster collaboration across teams. It may be within your team, but it also has to be across teams. And so there's certain aspects of consistency that need to be applied, especially when you're dealing and testing with real devices, that you want to ensure actually is provided. So a little bit about Keynote. So Keynote does provide a mobile testing solution. We deliver a real device mobile testing solution that's based in the cloud, and we have technology that allows folks to improve the quality, the overall quality of their applications and their mobile websites by having remote access, remote access to real devices all over the world that are actually connected with live connections to real mobile wireless carriers, and have full functionality over those devices, or full control over the functionality of those devices. So that means cameras and keys and accelerometers, etc. And so that's kind of our bread and butter. That's what we do at Keynote. And we offer a number of different ways in which you can actually deploy this technology. It could be through our shared public cloud of devices that are available 24/7 for folks to interact with remotely, or it could be through other configurations that are private, a mixture of private devices that are hosted either remotely in the cloud or locally. And so a number of flexible options that we provide to you to basically have direct access to real devices in a very clean, consistent way. And that's really the key differentiator for us between having a device that you pull out of your desk, it's very personal and intimate to you, versus a consistent bank of devices that's being managed in an enterprise fashion so that the results that you receive are consistent and can be repeated and are reproducible every single time. So Keynote, we talked a little bit about Appium as being one of the great ways of maybe fostering this collaboration in a more leverageable and enhanced way between specifically developers and QA teams. Keynote has just released recently an integration with or for Appium. It does allow you to use Appium basically to write tests in Appium and to drive those tests and target them to real devices so that you can get feedback on whether or not functionality and quality exists from a real device perspective. Again, using Keynote's very consistent enterprise managed cloud-based approach. And so that gives you a lot of great opportunities to then integrate these real devices into your overall testing, your automated testing approach and structure. And what we thought we'd do is instead of talking about it, we would actually show you it. And so I think at this point what we'd like to do is just do a live test, and we'll see if we can actually open up our collaboration environment here to screencast for you what this looks like and show you how to run a test that you might have written in some nice programming language that you prefer in your own comfortable IDE, and target that to a remote device, the Keynote Cloud, and watch that actually run on that real device and see how that can help you to improve your process for quality assurance. So Bean is going to drive this demonstration. So Bean, what are we looking at here?
Hi, thank you, Aaron. We are looking at the web-based interface we have for the device interaction here. So in today's demo, I'm going to cover, I'm going to run through this one test case in 3 different methods. Okay, first is through manual testing, and then through Appium, and then through the Keynote built-in recorder for the automation scripting. Okay, so just to show you that the support for the different type of user you have. Okay, manual testing, advanced user, or the beginner user. Okay, and what you're looking at here is I acquire a live device here. So this is a real device in our, this particular one is in our demo environment. So it's connected in our office, and as you can see here, I am looking through the camera of the phone at our front desk.
Oh, I should run outside and like stand over there by the desk so people can see me. But
yes, so sometimes you can actually see people walking by or just chit-chatting over there.
It's a slow time in the office here.
Okay, so I'm going to quickly go through some of the functionality of this UI. So if you can see from here this is a list of all the devices in the package that I have access to. I can certainly make them my favorite, that way I can quickly get to them. In this case, these 2 devices here that I have that I'm going to run my demo on.
And so these are the devices that Keynote has available in that shared cloud environment. I think there's like 200, 300 some odd different devices. 300
shared device plus or minus,
okay.
And then whatever the private devices that you have. Okay.
Anything I could want.
Basically, yes. Okay. And you have a different filtering that can narrow down the list that you want to look at. Okay. And over here on the phone, I can do anything that you basically have your phone in front of you, touching on the screen, getting into apps, getting out. Okay, and there's a whole bunch of data that you can collect during your manual testing here. Okay, the log files from the device or exporting the frames frame by frames from your testing.
Now that to me would seem very much like, wow, as opposed to having a device in my hand, being able to do my testing through this remote interface, A, I may be able to access a device I couldn't, that wasn't in my drawer, so to speak, but B, even if I was, if I did have a Samsung Galaxy like the one you have here, then it's watching all my testing activity, and you have ways to share that so that you can collaborate with other folks on your team as you go through the process of testing.
Yes, exactly. Okay, and so I'm going to run through just one simple test case for recording expense that I incur. Okay, I'm going to run this expense managers here. Now this app is I just installed it from the Play Store. Okay, so you can upload the app that is pre-production, or you can just install the one from the production versions. Okay, in this case, this is the expense manager that I just installed. I'm going to quickly run through the steps that you will see the same steps being run from Appium and also from the Keynote automated script. Okay, all I do is come in here, click on the expense, put in some numbers, and then put in the payee. In this case, I'm just going to use BOA, changing the categories.
So you're clicking on the keys, the keyboard basically of the device by just, using your mouse? Is that how you're doing that?
Yes.
Okay.
So in this case, the mouse will be your finger.
Got it.
Okay. And come in here, change this, save. Okay. Now, just going to go back to this expense and then delete this. Okay. So as you can see, I gone through and used different functionality of the phone, touching, text entering, and handling the pop-up screen. Okay. And all this can be done automatically also. So all I did here is just manually going through that. Okay. That's it.
Cool.
Now, I'm going to go to the even nicer part. Okay, I have Appium script that is created. In here, as you can see, these are the standard library stuff that you include. And here,
it's just you running an Eclipse window here. Is that what this is?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes, I am using Eclipse, but you could use any IDE that you can write the scripts in Appium. Okay. We tested Appium on the multiple languages, but as you probably know, if you're familiar with Appium, there's more languages that is support than we can cover all in one shot.
Yeah, that's kind of one of the beauties of Appium, right? They support all these various different languages, so that's great. It gives obviously a lot of different flexibility for people to script.
Yep. So over here on the screen here, this is what we Keynote needed in terms of connecting to the device. Okay. So you're just using the regular Android driver to connect to the device, and these are the things that you need to add to your Appium script. After that, this part is your Appium script itself. There's no modification inside the scripts. Okay. So you can take your Appium scripts, add the device acquisition to the beginning and release of the device at the end, and that's it. Everything else inside here, the highlighted portion, these are on your own code. Okay. Now, if you want to save screenshot or any additional information, you will have to do it in your script. Okay. And then later on, I'm going to show you a little bit in terms of what Keynote provided if you're using the Keynote built-in recorder and scripting capabilities. Okay. So in this case, I'm running through the same step here as I manually gone through. Okay, going through the expense managers and then clicking through the buttons. So I'm going to run this on 2 devices at the same time. Okay. So after I click on this one, I'm going to
wait a second. You're going to run this on 2 devices at the same time?
Yep.
Wow.
So as you can see, the phone on the right started, and then phone on the left started, both going to expense.
So these are different now. They're both Android phones, but these are different phones. One is, I can see, is an LG, and then you have a Galaxy there, right?
Yes.
So these are different phones.
The left is LG G2, and then the right is the Samsung S6 Edge.
Got it.
So you have the one of the latest device from this year and one old device from a couple of years ago.
That's interesting.
Okay.
Cool.
And then if you can notice on this side on my desktop screen, there's a screenshot that was just saved here.
Ah, yeah.
Okay.
Those two little files down there on the left, I see them.
Mm-hmm.
So that was part of your script to
Yes.
capture a screenshot.
Mm-hmm. That's part of my, okay, so the script just finished, so the phone returned to its original state, and then I'm coming back to the scripts, okay? And as you can see from this screenshot, these are the ones that I saved through the Appium script, okay?
So these are files that were just snapshotted to your local laptop,
Yes.
where you're running your ID.
Yes.
Got it.
I save it on the desktop just for demo purpose. You can
Yeah.
save it to wherever the place you want to save
Yep.
to. Okay, and that's it for the Appium script support. It's very simple. You come in, acquire the device using, acquire the device, and then run your script, and that's it. Okay. Now, this is for user who or the customer who are very familiar and comfortable with scripting out everything themselves. Okay. Now we also have another UI. So let me close out this.
So as you're closing that out, so then, again, I might have a development colleague who's running some simple unit tests. Could have been an Appium script like that. They can target Keynote device. They may run it against one device, let's say, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you could then take, if you were in the QA team, you could take that script and then run it against, obviously it just shows 2 devices, but I mean, is there any limit to however many devices you wanted to run it on?
Nope.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. So I could really improve my coverage. Now, of course, the script would have to be written in a way, presumably, that from an object standpoint, you're ending up with an apples-to-apples type of a scenario.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that's pretty cool.
Yep.
Cool.
Okay. So now I'm in. This is the Keynote built-in interface. It's GUI based, and you can script here basically through graphical interface by dragging the commands one by one. In this case, I just use the launch apps commands, and there's nothing secret to it. It's just 2 of our GUI command. And check out here, okay? And it's very easy to launch an app. All you need to do is pick from the list. These are the list of all the apps available on this phone, okay? And then once you pick it and you launch it, then you are in the apps itself, okay? Now, in this particular case, let's say I don't want to script, right? I just want to record the commands. So I click on the record button, click on expense. As you can see, it recognizes that all the objects from the screen, it save it, and then it highlights the button or the object that I touch on. Okay. Now I can continue to click on the buttons to continue recording, or I can add a verification step here. And let's say I want to make sure that the payee show up before I want to continue to the next step. I can do all these things, okay? And I can, during the recording is still active, I can actually go back to one of the steps, and I decided I don't want to click on that button, I want to click on the other button, or I want to look for specific buttons. Okay? This is an object filter that allows me to quickly find the exact objects that I'm looking for. The reason for this is that this screen is fairly simple, but there are screens that we have up to a few thousand objects that the customer put in. And of course, you can also look at the object tree itself, and as you pick the different items, then you can see that it's highlighting the item for you. Okay? And you can do searching also here. So that's tons of different ways, and if we're going through a normal demo, I'm going to take about 2 hours
Yeah.
to cover all this.
Which we do not have.
Yes.
Unfortunately, yeah.
So I'm going to stop the recording here and then go to the script that I already recorded previously. As you can see here, I'm just going to check this out.
But when you were doing the recording, essentially you could have just simply reproduced the exact same steps or interactions that you had showed us originally when you first were kind of manually interacting with the device. It's a very similar mode,
Yes.
is it not?
Yes.
And you're in that kind of record mode. So I just kind of push buttons, I type, or I use my mouse to type in values, etc., and the UI is just going to simply capture all of that interaction.
Yes.
Got it.
Okay. So, for example, this was the recorded step that I have with the verification that I added to make sure that the transport button show up before I go to the next step, which is touching an expense and then entering the data. So in this case, is entering the amount 923 into the box. Okay, and this step was the exact same one that I gone through when I do the manual testing, and also the exact same step that I went through in Appium. Okay?
Got it.
So now I'm just going to quickly run this. As you can see, it's launching the app. It's close it first, and then it open it, and then it's going to go through the add expense portions. These are the steps. I'm not touching the mouse now, but it's going to jump through. You can see the highlight here. It's going to walk it through to the next step as it's executed on the phone.
I see. So the highlight is just it's moving through those little icons in your grid and putting a little gray circle around that.
Yes.
As it steps through that that particular process.
And
okay.
this step that just passed through, as you can see, is very interesting. You are able to do the swiping in the same command, so that if you have a long list of items, then you can swap through that. Okay. So this part is done, and then the next one. The reason I put it in two action is just to break up, just like you normally do when you're doing programming. You put in sub-functions. Okay. Otherwise, all of them can be in one big giant function too.
Right.
Just grouping, logical grouping, and then reuse later. Okay. So that's it. So this part just done. Now, the few item is the.
That looked like a very good test, by the way, because it passed every single time we ran it.
Well, in case that it didn't pass, then you do have detailed results that are saved. So from here is once you upload the data, what you would see is on the, we have a result portal that saves all this data, and once you click on this, one of this link, you can see the detailed step that it gone through, and for each step it saves all the relevant information for you. Okay, so this is the high level here. It's showing you what device you use and time and the essential information. And then now I click on one of the command step, and in this every step you get the proof image of before the command started and after the command.
Now wait a second.
executed.
So with every single step you get this?
Yes. So these are done automatically for you. You do not have to include a function call. So the screenshot is taken.
Ah.
Yeah.
So you had to manually do that when you were writing the Appium version of this, but
Yeah.
in this case, the Keynote system actually does it for you.
Yes.
Understood.
And you can see that the bottom here is save all the relevant informations and the object that is found on this particular step. It gives you the coordinate also on where it touched, but it actually recognizes the object to touch by the object name. Okay, the XY coordinate is for your reference. Okay, just to help you narrow down like where you actually touch it, because sometimes on the screen it could be multiple objects with the same information.
Right. So you ran this test on a device that has a funky, well, let's say it was a tablet, right? A much bigger screen, or a viewport that's obviously very different from the one that you're using here, and the button ended up like in the upper right-hand corner. you'd at least see the coordinates
Yes.
represented in that fashion. That's interesting.
So it provides a lot of information to help you debug the issues. And then if this is one of the one that failed, then yes, there will be a red mark, and then it'll show you the information it collected. Okay?
Our tests never fail. Well, I don't know.
Well, I mean, we want it to fail so that you can catch the problem
That's
before,
true.
right?
That's true. That's true.
Okay. And that's it for the demo. Just to reiterate, is we've gone through manual testing, we've gone through Appium testing on multiple devices, and then I'm showing this recorder-based scripting in the Keynote system. Okay. Now, there's a lot more other things that we haven't touched on. Is, for example, headless executions. You can schedule the job and then run it, and you can do the execution from drive it from external or from internal, and a whole bunch of other things that we can play with.
And that might be the topic of a webcast for yet another day.
Yes.
Because we do also obviously integrate, not obvious, but for our audience's benefit, you know, what's really interesting is when you can really start combining a lot of this automation, you know, in other contexts, like, for example, build automation, right? And so, you know, Jenkins is another environment that commonly our customers talk to us about integrating with to do continuous integration. And so to be able to kick off these kind of build acceptance oriented tests in a very automated fashion every time a new build is created, and then that obviously that's something a lot of our customers are very interested in supporting as well. And so that's I think definitely a topic for discussion on another day.
Yep.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Bean.
Thank you.
Hopefully the audience was got some good use out of this. Just some final closing thoughts as we wrap up here and get to your questions. You know, really, as we're thinking about collaboration, and hopefully you kind of can see or have a good sense of a feel for the kind of collaboration that you can drive if you are using some framework like an Appium framework that really has a lot of inherent advantages for folks, let's say, on your development team, that can be then leveraged and extended and repurposed in the context of true end-to-end QA or quality assurance. You get a lot of really really significant benefits when you can bring those two together, when you can build that bridge. But really the key, one thing that we really want to emphasize is that if you build that bridge and still yet you may be sharing the same kind of tests or the actual code of the tests themselves, but you're not sharing the same device, how good is the consistency going to be, or the reproducibility of the results that you're getting in the context of that testing? And all that collaboration, again, that bridge, you know, may be a bridge to nowhere if you can't have certainty around the reproducibility of those results. And so we really think it's important to have a strategy for ensuring that the devices and the environment in which you're actually executing your testing delivers that kind of consistency so that you can have the assurance of knowing that your results are true and accurate. So that's our last parting thoughts for today. Hopefully it was useful to you. I guess, Josiah, what we'd like to do maybe is to turn it over to you to open up the conversation more to our audience and answer some of their questions.
All right, absolutely. Before we start Q&A, remember you can ask Aaron and Bean questions by typing them in the field beneath the panel and then clicking the Submit button. We'll try to get through as many questions as possible, but for those we're unable to answer during Q&A, some will be answered offline. All right, guys, first question. Is the keyword-driven test approach supported by Appium by default without any extra effort?
Yes, so as you can see in the demo earlier, is for the Appium portions, whatever is supported by Appium, we allow them to execute on the devices. So you can use the different methods that Appium allow you to identify the objects and also to pass through the parameters. Okay.
Yeah, and just for everybody's reference, well, obviously, you know, we at Keynote, we try to be as open and extensible as we possibly can. So, you know, Appium is one framework. We don't profess to be experts in Appium, but we do support all of the native capabilities of Appium in and of itself. So anything that you can envision and that you can do in Appium really is supportable by the Keynote system. And so I would encourage folks to explore the Appium community. It is an open source community if that's of interest to them. But yeah, keyword support, absolutely.
All right, thank you very much. Next question. Do developers need to change their code to let Appium grab object identifiers?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, no problem. Do developers need to change their code to let Appium grab object identifiers? It's question number 23 in the chat.
Oh, thank you. Well, for the Appium portion, that is, you do need to allow the Appium to recognize the objects. I believe it's also using the accessibility API. So, but those are by default should be supported in the Android devices already.
All right, thank you very much. Next question. Does Keynote provide services in addition to the mobile test infrastructure and mobile test automation tool?
Yes, Keynote does have a professional services group that can help you with providing guidance. For example, if you're doing your own automations, or they can actually provide the complete solution of doing the automation for you. And on top of that, they can also do monitorings. So Keynote does have a full suite of different products.
All right, a little bit more specific question. Do we have to recompile our native apps with specific library or code blocks to automate using Appium?
For Keynote portion, we do not need you to recompile your code. So as you can see from the examples, is the main item for Keynote is to acquire the device and managing the device. But once you acquire the device, whatever the code that you have from that you written in Appium, you can run those. And in terms of the apps, is just the normal build. We do not require you to rebuild or add. Keynote portion does not require you to add libraries into your code. Okay. The one additional requirement for the iOS app is that we do need to resign the apps, but that's just a resigning portion. There's no libraries to add to your code either.
All right, thank you very much. And being this one's a little bit longer, is Keynote's Appium solution a proprietary wrapper around the open source Appium, or can I execute a Keynote Appium script on another solution that supports Appium like Sauce Labs?
Technically, there's no Keynote Appium script. Keynote support Appium. That's it. We don't change your Appium script, as you can see from the example. We don't modify your Appium script. We do not require you to add additional code into your apps to support Appium. I mean, if Appium require you, that's Appium, right? But Keynote itself does not require you to do anything with Appium code.
All right, next question. How can I determine the amount of coverage I'll get by testing on specific devices? How should I choose the phones or tablets I should be testing on?
We do have tools that can help you based on the criteria that you can enter. Now, on top of that, there's also have to look at the market that you're focusing on, because there are some variants in terms of the device models and that are popular in the different market segments. But overall, at the very high level worldwide, is Android has the most market shares, and iOS is next. And then depending on the market segment that you're going into, Windows, for example, could go up to like 10%, and those are across the different OS platform. Now, in terms of the different phone or different resolutions per OS, then those also depend on how you are targeting. because mainly it goes by the screen size. So if you're targeting large, medium, and small screen size, then that should cover most of the use cases.
So Bean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that we do suggest or recommend as a best practice that when you are developing your mobile applications and of course you're doing your testing and all of that, that you do consider and apply as part of your strategy a mobile application analytics portion as well. Analytics are so critical to being able to help you understand and drive, not only greater usage and adoption, but higher quality as well. And this goes beyond just, crash analytics, right? But full functional usage understanding of your application. So I think that's pretty much a best practice, and really you want to use that empirical data to drive the kind of decisions you make with regard to device coverage.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, next question. Do I need to install and run Appium locally in order to test on Keynote devices remotely?
No, so the Appium's server portion, those are installed on the server that the devices are connected to. So in your client machines, you do need to have the IDE, of course, that is compatible, and then the Appium libraries to be included in your script. And then once you kick it off, it will be running on the Keynote device and Keynote server. So you do not have to have the server on your machines.
We take care of it all.
Yep. You just need to tell us which device to run on, and we'll run it.
That's right. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much, guys. That actually ends our event for today. I'd like to thank our speakers, Aaron and Dean, for their time. And I would like to thank Keynote for sponsoring this event. Also, a special thank you goes out to you, the audience, for spending the last hour with us. Have a great day, and we hope to see you at a future event.
Thank you.
Thank you.